Welcome back to Nuclear News, where loyal followers of this channel have done pretty well staying on top of the fundamentals of the uranium space, the emerging nuclear renaissance, the emerging supply crunch for uranium. This is just year-to-date price action in the Sprott Uranium Miners ETF up 20.82%. And then the Junior Miners ETF, which is much more exciting, 27% year to date, right? All has to do with the fundamentals of the space. The stock market is up 4.59%, probably not even outrunning inflation at this point. So let's look at more fundamentals. Why is this happening? Well, this comes from Game of Trades. Utilities face a uranium shortage in coming years. This is why uncovered uranium requirements of utilities in the US and worldwide through 2040 as a share of each's total requirements. This is industry data, right? This is the industry's best estimate on uncovered uranium requirements, meaning there's insufficient supply to cover the required uranium needed by this amount, right? So by 2034, they're saying 100% will be uncovered in the US. Worldwide, they're saying 80% of the needed uranium will not be available. That is a massive supply crunch. That is the rubber band getting stretched tighter and tighter and tighter. What happens to the price when the supply is far less than demand? Well, that's what this chart is. Look at how early stage we are. Look at 2024, only 10% not meeting it. And there's just nothing even deep into 2025, 2026. It just gets worse and worse for the supply crunch, but better and better for the upward price pressure on uranium. This is another way of looking at massive nuclear generation, huge demand going forward. This is from the Financial Times. Nuclear generation is forecast to reach a record high by 2025, just going up. And then we have stories like this, which we covered in the last video. Splendid uranium bull run to be prolonged by Kazatomprom acid woes. Again, not expected. We already had a supply crunch, and now we have logistical issues just accelerating, prolonging this bull run. If you want to know how big and important Kazakhstan uranium is, mainly Kazatomprom uranium, here are the world's top uranium producers. This comes from juniorstocks.com. Look at Kazakhstan. What happens in Kazakhstan is really important for uranium, and they cannot pump out uranium, right? So what does that mean? These other ones, Canada, Namibia, they cannot pick up the slack that Kazakhstan is leaving right now. Japan adds uranium to critical minerals list, right? The nuclear renaissance booming in Japan. They realize how critical uranium is. So any assets that control uranium are going to benefit in a huge way economically. There's a rush for these resources. Canadian company to go after millions of pounds of Wyoming uranium, a rush to open uranium mines in Wyoming as nuclear fuel is looking across the KC countryside for deposits, could access millions of pounds of uranium as the state and nation rush to roll out new nuclear plants. A gold rush. Money pouring into the space to look for this scarce resource. What does this mean for all the miners that have exposure to the space? Huge economic value. Here's Peninsula, a small cap, early stage asset. Peninsula Energy announced completion of its oversubscribed share purchase plan to raise $10 million. So oversubscribed. What are they going to do? They're on track and on budget for restart of dry yellowcake production by the end of 2024. So great for this asset, which controls scarce and valuable uranium, right? But just one example, oversubscribed. All these mining assets are just in such a great position to take advantage of this gold rush. CNN actually picking up on the future demand and the massive nuclear renaissance unfolding and the new technology that's accelerating it. New wave reactor technology could kickstart a nuclear renaissance, and the US is banking on it. This is probably the biggest story. The US pumping billions of dollars into the space. Biden to offer $1.5 billion loan to restart Michigan nuclear power plant. They offered a huge loan to California to restart a power plant there as well, right? So this is the wall of capital moving in, the biggest wall of capital on the planet at this point. Westinghouse, Bechtel signed cooperation agreement with Czech Power Industry Alliance. So Westinghouse expanding around the world, making sure the nuclear renaissance takes hold in just about every country on the planet. Data centers take note. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and the North American Electric Reliability Corporation talk about how as the future of the U.S. energy supply passes through these organizations, The data center industry should take note, right? Microsoft, way ahead of the game on this, investing in nuclear to power artificial intelligence, to power the digital revolution. Here's even more early stage tech related to this space. This comes from the Office of Nuclear Energy. 3 surprising ways to use nuclear energy. Nuclear desalination. 1/5 of the world's population experiences water scarcity, and the demand for fresh water continues to grow. Desalination plants around the world rely on energy to remove salt and produce fresh water. How are we going to get fresh water from our vast oceans? Nuclear power, unbelievably massive. Clean hydrogen production, fertilizers, steel refining, synthetic fuel for cargo ships. Nuclear will power that as well. Process heating for industry, steel manufacturing, cement production, and metal refining. Nuclear will power that as well. Nuclear will essentially power everything at this point. Uranium price bound for $160, says Sprott Asset Management. Sprott has been pretty right so far, right? And based on everything we've been talking about, there's nothing stopping it from heading up to $160. And so we're just going to have to continue staying on top of the space, the fundamentals of the space. Thanks for riding out the uranium winter with me, and now the uranium summer. We're staying on top of this space.